In this lecture, we'll learn about dimensions of list. The list we worked till our previous lecture is single dimension or one dimension list. If we want, we can create a two-dimension list. Two-dimension list is simply list inside a list. If there is one or more list inside a list, then we call it two-dimension list. Let's declare a new list and name it names2D and assign empty square brackets. And inside the square brackets, let's add another two square brackets and pass a few values in both the list. And print it. We can see it's showing list inside list. Now if we want to print the first list, then we have to pass index, as our first list is at index 0 of main list. Well, let's declare the list again to understand. Let's name it main list and assign an empty square bracket to make it list. And inside our main list at the 0th index, we're passing another list instead of a single value. Let's compare with our names list. At the first index of our names list, there is a string value Anika. But at the first index of our names2D list, there is a list. Hope you have understand. In our print function, let's pass index 0 to print the first list. And we can see it's printing our first list. What if we want to print any value instead of a list? Then we have to pass another index. Look at it closely. Think we have only this list and we want to print Natalia. Then what would we do? We would pass only -1 because Natalia is at the end of our list. So let's try it. And we can see it's printing perfectly. Now, if we want, we can print it using loop. We have to simply write for and names, let's say names1 in names2D colon and then print names. I mean names1. Let's run the program to test. We will see some interesting fact here. We can see instead of printing single value, it has printed two lists. Because names2D is a two-dimension array, so using one for loop, we will go one step inside. If we want to access the value, then we have to use another for loop. So we will say for name in names1, then print name. We can see it's printing perfectly. So if there is one dimension array, we have to use single for. If there is two dimension array, then we have to use two for loop, one for loop inside another for loop, or one single nested for loop. And if there is a three dimension array, then we have to use three for loop, one inside another and another inside one. And if we have a three dimension list, then we have to use three for loop, or we can say three nested for loop. In the same way, if we have 5-dimension array, then we have to use 5 for loop, or we can say 5 nested for loop. Let's try one 5-dimension list. Names 5D. So there is one list, and inside the list there is another one, and inside this there is another one. This is number 3, number 4, and number 5. So inside the fifth list, we will assign few values. I'm just copying this one to save time. So if we want to print value from this list, then we have to use 5 index. Let's try it. Let's first print directly without passing any index. Names 5D and comment this piece of code and run it. Sorry, we forgot to use comma. And we can see our 5-dimension list is printed. Now if we want to print the first list, then we have to use the index 0 and another first index 0, another first index 0. Let's try this 3 first. And we can see still there are 2 more lists. List number 4, the final list, and here if we want to print Natalia, we can just simply pass -1. And it's working perfectly. And if we want to print it using a for loop, then simply we have to use 5 nested for. Let's try it. For names 4 in names 5D, for names 3 in names 4, for names 2 in names 3, for names 1 in names 2, and for name in names 1, then print it. Print name. Now let's run the program to test. And we can see it has printed perfectly. Hope you guys have understand the dimensions of list, how it's declared and how it's used. Now let's learn about tuple, set and dictionaries in Python in next lesson.